I have a very special guest that's going to be joining me today. He's been on the show a couple times before, but it's been a few years now. He's now at Minnesota, just coming off an incredible year at Minnesota last season where he was a member of the second team all-conference team. And now he's heading into a season in which he has the hopes and has a good chance of being an All-American this season. That's Dawson Garcia. Dawson, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, I do want to get in a couple things right out the gate because, first of all, we know that you had an injury that you went through a little bit, and now I know you've been back practicing. We've been seeing a few different footages from that aspect. Walk us through this a little bit. How's the recovery, and how's it feel to be back on the court again?
Yeah, recovery's been good. It was a good process. It was a unexpected injury, but just had to kind of take it for what it was. And I had a good time getting back in rehab. Watched a lot of film and basketball in the meantime while I was down, and now that I'm back healthy, I'm just excited and eager to get the season started.
So kind of take us through it then. I'm assuming it was, I know what we saw from the press release and whatnot was more just a summer workout, but how did it all go down? Was it something that was like a scrimmage or whatnot? Did it just accidentally happen in a lift or something, or how did it all happen?
Yeah, I was just going through a summer workout, and I just made a cut and just cut wrong on my foot, and yeah, that was that. And so was able to come back in about 8 weeks, 8 9 weeks fully, I think.
So would you say at this point then you're at 100%? Do you feel you're pretty much 100% back at yourself? You're still a couple of weeks from getting in shape 100%, or where would you say on that scale you are?
Now I'd say I'm 100%. This last week we had our version of Hell Week. It's called Winners Week, and so
Hmm.
it's a lot of conditioning in 2 days. So that got me right back up to speed.
Absolutely, man. Well, the other thing I got to get to right away is I know you've had a couple of different hair changes throughout your college career. Obviously, you have a new look this time around. Walk us through what was the inspiration behind the new hair change?
Yeah, really, I just got bored. It was when I got injured, and I decided to just go in and get my hair bleached. So really, it just came from boredom.
Gotcha, man. Well, I want to go through your career a little bit because I alluded to in the introduction that last time we talked was 2020. It was right before you guys were already going on campus, and you're originally at that point all the way back at Marquette, getting ready to go out there. But I want to go through your career a little bit, just so people can kind of get to know your story a little bit as you get ready to head into, like I said, a year that I think the whole world's going to be able to learn about your name. And so, if we head back to where the last time we were talking was, you're going through this time in high school, you're in Minnesota, and you originally chose Marquette. So, if we look back at that point in time, walk us through that recruitment because Minnesota was in the mix at that point, but you obviously chose to go to Marquette instead. What led to that original decision coming out of high school for yourself?
Yeah, what led to that original decision was really my relationship that was built with the Marquette coaching staff through
Mm.
those 3 to 4 years of high school. Had a super strong relationship with Coach Wojo, Stan Johnson, DK,
Yep.
JP, Dan, really the whole staff, JG. All those guys are still. I consider them to be big time mentors, and they helped me out a lot in my career. And so, really, just that family aspect relationship I had built with them throughout those years in high school was really the main reason why I chose Marquette. And I don't regret. I don't regret anything. I had a great time there. Unfortunately, they got let go or whatever happened after my freshman year.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had a great experience there, and I'm very thankful to all those coaches that I just named.
The cool thing about that is you just listed a lot of guys that are head coaches now. Coach Stan Johnson obviously went out to LMU. Obviously, Coach Dwayne, he's out there at Albany. This whole group of guys has been, that was a really elite coaching staff because you mentioned Coach Gainey as well. He's the lead coach, lead associate coach now out there in Tennessee. Walk us through just those guys, though, just having that relationship and now also seeing the success they've had as they've gone forth in their careers. What's it been like seeing that?
Yeah, all those guys are where they're at. It's no surprise. They demand
Mhm.
excellence every day from themselves and from their players as well. So it's no surprise to see all those guys having success. And like I mentioned earlier, they were a huge stepping stone, or not a stepping stone, but they were a huge. They had a huge impact in my career as I continue to step forward.
Now, one thing I do want to ask you is we know now that in hindsight, you're now at Minnesota, you're the hometown hero. But when we look back, that couple of year span in Minnesota basketball was insane. When you talk about the high school guys coming out of there between yourself, Chet, Jalen, even on the girl aspect, you have Paige coming out of there, and a list goes on as well. Was there ever any consideration between either just yourself, you guys having a conversation with the other Minnesota guys, of possibly forming something special in Minnesota and all you guys going to Minnesota straight out of high school?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely like conversation here and there, but it was never any like serious type of conversation that we were having. I think we were all, focused on making the best decision for ourselves individually. And so I think that was kind of the main focus at the time. And there wasn't anything too crazy along those lines.
And so when we talk about that coaching staff, I know there were a lot of people that's discussed, and I've had a couple other guys that mentioned it before that there wasn't, at least Coach Patino's run time, there wasn't as much of an emphasis on keeping the guys home as there was now, per se, with what Coach Ben Johnson's doing. Would you say that's an accurate statement? Would you say that there wasn't as much of an emphasis on keeping guys home, and specifically, at least for yourself, since you know that aspect a lot better when it came to your high school recruiting?
No, I mean, I wouldn't really get behind that statement. I feel like people just made the decision that was best for them in a given time,
Hmm.
and then just luckily for me, it was a full circle moment. I was able to come back home, and Coach Johnson was at the helm at that time, and so I'm just thankful it all happened how it happened. But I wouldn't really say that. Johnson and his staff has done a tremendous job of, like you said, targeting the in-state talent and keeping kids home. But I don't really think it was a knock on Patino or anything like that.
Sure. So what would you say is the big difference then when obviously times have changed and even your own career standpoint, you're a different place than obviously you were as a freshman, you know the game and the landscape a lot better. What was it this third time around, I should say, I guess, when you were deciding to go where you're going to go for your, at that point, junior season? What was it then about Minnesota that you said, okay, this is where I want to go. I need to go back home. And this is like the right program for me at this point in time.
Yeah, it was a decision I made with my family
Hmm.
at the time, and it was just the right decision to make. I don't really know how to explain it without getting into too much detail, and it was just the right decision to make, and I'm glad I made it.
Absolutely. Let's go back through your career a little bit more now because you alluded to your freshman season at Marquette went pretty well overall. You entered your name in the transfer portal after that because Coach Woj got let go, as well as also you talked about just having the NBA draft component, which you're also exploring too. And you decided to go to North Carolina at that point, and you were one of the top, I think, even the number one ranked transfer that season. What was it about North Carolina at that point in time that you felt that was where God was going to place you and wanted you to go?
Yeah, it was just like you said. Like I was working out for a couple teams in the draft, doing pre-draft out down in Memphis, and then I ultimately decided to go to North Carolina. And it just felt like the right decision at the time, and so that's the decision I made.
Now, you had countless schools pursuing you. As I said, you were one of, if not the best player in the portal that time around. What was it about North Carolina that separated themselves from everybody else?
I mean, North Carolina is a historic program. I got nothing good but good things to say about them.
Hmm.
Countless good players, coaches, you name it, have came from that school, and so it's a historic program. And sometime a young kid, 19 years old, Michael Jordan played at that school.
Yeah.
It's a very historic school, so it was very tough to pass up on at the time.
And now that season also was unique because it was a change in the guards there. You went from a historic all-time great coach and Roy Williams to Hubert Davis takes over. And obviously there was a lot of ups and downs throughout that season as a whole. Walk us through that just a little bit though, because obviously I know a lot went down personally for yourself, and I'm sure a lot went in the locker room as a whole as well. Walk us through that second year in college for yourself.
Yeah, so that second year, got there in the summer, a little bit after towards the end of the summer workouts. And then the season started. Everything really happened fast. And like you said, I had a lot of personal and family matters that were going at the time that affected me and my family.
Hmm.
And so I don't really care to get into that stuff,
Sure.
um, but yeah. So North Carolina basketball it was a great experience. Learned from a lot of greats, played with a lot of great teammates, and so I'm really thankful for that whole experience.
And so I do want to go into a little bit about just your faith as well, because I know you're a really strong believer, and that's something I always respected about you, and I love seeing that about yourself. And obviously, that season, like you alluded to, lots of ups and downs, both basketball wise, family wise, everything in between. How much would you say your relationship with God grew during that time span?
It grew a lot. I actually got baptized, um, and I appreciate you bringing that up too, because I've been watching your stuff, and it's been cool to see you grow in your faith as well.
Hmm.
Honestly,
Appreciate that.
but yeah, of course, yeah. So I got baptized. I got water baptized
Hmm.
right before I went off to North Carolina, and that was really the start. Shout out, one of my biggest mentors, Alex Preston. He's been a great mentor for me in my faith, and he was a former teammate of mine too. And so
Hmm.
he actually water baptized me. He's a pastor now.
Okay.
And then I went off to school in North Carolina. Stayed a little lukewarm in my faith. You know how it goes. It's easy to be
Yep.
1 foot in, 1 foot out, especially in the space that we're in. And so that experience really gave me a lot of it built my character a lot. It gave me a lot of empathy towards others just because I was going through a lot as far as like family death is concerned, and just the whole basketball and having to step away from the game, that was very tough for me. And so, like you said, I really had to lean on my faith, and it was a time that built my character a lot, and it showed me people's true colors around me as well, and it
Mhm.
allowed me to really just get close with God and realize that that's all we really have in this life, and that's truly all that matters is a relationship with Jesus Christ. Because without Him, we are nothing. He died for our sins, and He died for
Mhm.
us to our past, present, and future. So yeah.
That's a unique aspect because I know a lot of people from the outside looking, or those even in their immature stages of their relationship with God, is that you go through this, and a lot of people might say, "Hey, I'm going to give my life to Jesus, and all is going to be great. I'm not going to go through any issues and whatnot." And you're going to learn really quickly that's not exactly how it happened. And what's unique about your story, you just said, is that you go through after getting baptized, probably one of the more challenging time spans of your life. Then right after that, how would you say you dealt with that? Because I know a lot of people out there would say, "Hey, I just went and gave my life to Jesus. Why is this all happening so soon to me now?" How did you learn to cling to God even in those tough circumstances when you just kind of surrendered your life already and you decided to go get baptized and give your life to Him?
Yeah, I think it's just having the understanding of surrendering to God doesn't mean that your life is going to become all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Um, some surrendering to God is knowing that through the valleys He's still going to be with you, and having that it just brings an immense amount of peace and joy and hope, and that's all that we can really ask for in this life.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I alluded to earlier, there's going to be tough times in life. It's inevitable. Everyone's going to have tough times, tough seasons that they go through. But at the end of the day, we serve a greater God than any issue, than any
Hmm.
problem that we may be going through. And so, it's easier said than done too. And so I'm not trying to minimize any problem or issue that anybody's ever gone through or going through. But
Yeah.
as long as you lean on God, then you'll be all right.
So how would you say that time span in your life has now changed your perspective? Because, like you said, at the end of the day, there's one thing greater than anything else we do, from our work to our relationships on earth, whatever it is, and that's serving God. Going through those tough times and surrendering your life to God, and really having everything that you really cared about beforehand being taken away from to a certain extent, and having to really just rely upon Him for a season of life. How much would you say that's now altered and kind of changed your perspective on life as you've now gone through your career at Minnesota that we're about to get into?
Yeah, it's changed my perspective a lot for the better, and it's shown me what's truly important in this life. And so,
Mm.
like I said, be, when I was going through it in the moment at Carolina and having to step away from the game of basketball, which was my whole life at the time, and it's still a huge part of my life. It was tough. It was tough, right?
Yeah.
I was going through a lot, whether it was mentally or just seeing my family down,
Mhm.
this, that, and the third. So, having to lean on God and know that, all right, this is the perspective. All right, when I was going through those tough things, now I see others, and I'm more empathetic towards others.
Yep.
I have a higher character now. Just lots of things that changed my perspective. You kind of got to go through a little bit of the fire sometimes to have a greater understanding, and that's something that I'm thankful for now because I can reach more and more people, and I can
Mm.
spread the good news to more and more people because I have that perspective, and I have that empathetic heart towards others that are going through tough times.
And that right there is a massive reason why we can also become believers and ultimate leaders now of the faith too. Because, like you said, you get to experience it. Your walk with God. Now, there's a lot of people that's earlier on in the stage of relationship with God. How have you seen just your overall ability now to help lead people, whether that be in your own locker room at Minnesota, that be people on campus, whatever the case may be, even just people just online, social media, whatnot? How have you been able to kind of embrace now being that person that can say, "Hey, I can kind of help you out now. I understand what you're going through to a certain extent. Here's what God says. Here's how I can kind of help comfort you and get you through this to a certain extent to ultimately rely upon God in that season."
Yeah, God's given me great confidence in that,
Mm.
because like you mentioned, if you're going to help somebody out or minister to them or to disciple them, you're not going and presenting yourself as you have it all figured out or you're better than them. It's like, no, like let's walk through this season together. Let
Yep.
me come down and feel the emotions that you're feeling. We'll figure this out together. And so that's the part of it that's big for me. I don't try to approach anybody that I'm better than them, that I know more than them, just because I believe in God and I believe that Jesus Christ is the King of Kings. I just
Yep.
want to meet them where they're at, and then ultimately plant the seed, and I know God will do the rest.
Amen, man. Well, let's get into this next chapter of life that you've been going through now because after your first 2 seasons of college basketball, you decide to come back home and you take on a role that has to be exciting, at least from the outside looking in, of being the hometown hero in a sense now. The guy that's going to be able to help retool, rebrand, rebuild a program that hasn't obviously been in the highest stages in recent years. What was it then about Minnesota that you were able to say, you know what? This is what's meant for me at this point in time. I get to be closer to family, all those aspects, but I also just kind of get embraced now being a hometown hero.
Yeah, I got a crazy amount of pride about my home state. Wearing that Minnesota across my chest every single game, I get goosebumps. And playing inside of the home crowd, I get goosebumps, and it's a feeling that I can't really describe. It's just being a place that I grew up in, and then going and playing against different states and different universities. It's just a pride and a certain ego that you have. Like every single time you step on that court, it means something more, and that's truly what it is. People say that when they're growing up, they want to play for their home state for that reason, and I can say it for myself that that's true.
When you were going through that transfer process for the second time, then were there any of the schools that you even were considering, or was this pretty much a saying where okay, you knew that because of whatever's going on off the court and other things that you wanted to make sure you're back in the state closer to family, so pretty much that was your only option, or were there any of those schools you were actually looking at during that time span?
Yeah, as soon as I made the decision to go into the portal, I was pretty much 100% set on Minnesota, just
Mhm.
because of my circumstance and everything going on. This was the best place for me and the place that I wanted to be.
Well, let's get into this because you are back home now and you get to represent. You've done an excellent job so far of being that hometown hero. But the one guy I really want to touch up on is Coach Ben Johnson because he comes back home, also a hometown person, and he's tasked with the option to go and rebuild this program now. As I said, it wasn't obviously at the best of situations overall in the few years leading up to that. And he takes over the hometown guy, and he now gets to be reunited now in a sense with a fellow hometown star now in yourself. What has that connection just been like, and how great was it just kind of building that relationship from the transfer process with Coach Johnson?
Yeah, it's been great. Um, Coach Johnson is a high achiever, highly competitive dude. Um, Wants to win at any cost, and he's a type of guy that I align with great. We go into practice every single day. Um, don't feel comfortable. Every single day is competition and ready to go to war. And so it's someone that I clicked with right away. He actually recruited me to Minnesota when I was younger. I want to say towards the end of my middle school, and then once he got to Xavier, he recruited me as well. And so I had a good relationship with him
Okay.
throughout really, the past I want half decade to decade or so. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I feel old saying that, but I've had a great relationship with him for a long time, and so we've always been in contact, and um, now that I'm here, I'm just glad.
So I actually did not know that aspect that you guys knew each other that far going that far back. So I'm assuming then when you pretty much got right on campus, then you got right back to work that you guys pretty much clicked overall. I'm sure obviously they're still adjusting whatnot to coaching philosophies and whatnot, but overall personality wise, you guys were already pretty much in touch and great right out the right out the get go.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So we got to get into that. Then you guys have now spent two and a little bit over 2 years now together. What would you say has been your favorite memory of Coach Johnson so far?
My favorite memory, honestly, is whenever we get a roadkill dub, just because that's when he's the most juiced. He come into the locker room, um, and we all just have a good time. So whenever we get a roadkill dub, that's always the best memories that I have had so far with Coach Johnson, Coach Thor,
Mhm.
Jenkins, Kim. Go down the list. All the coaches are super juiced to. They love to win on the road, and so do we. And so when those two things align, it's always a great time.
So a lot of us don't get to see coaches off the court that much. Obviously, we can talk with them here and there, and fans can see them from interviews and whatnot. But you could experience him on and off the court every day of your life, pretty much. What is Coach Johnson like, just as on the personal level? What's he like there?
He's just a cool, chill dude. Like, off the court, he's cool, calm, collected, relaxed, and just a nice dude. Goes out in the community, is willing to help, do whatever it takes to serve others, and I
Mm.
think that's just a great quality that he has as well. And so, yeah, off the court, he's just cool. He's just cool and relaxed.
And obviously, you have only 1 year remaining at being able to be at Minnesota, and he's hopefully going to be here for the foreseeable future. How excited should fans be for what he's going to build, and not just only this upcoming season, but now going forward in the next 4, 5, 10 years, whatever the case may be? How excited should fans be for what Coach Johnson has in store for this program?
Fans should be super excited. I would encourage them, if they're not bought in, to buy in. It's continuing to go up and up. That's what we're doing here. We're building and building, and that's the big reason why I chose to come back. I had plenty of options that I could have done this past year.
Yep.
But that's a big reason why I decided to come back too, just because I believe in the coaches. I love this university. I love the school. I believe in this university. I believe in the school. And then, like I alluded to earlier, it was big in my faith as well. I prayed a lot about it. I fasted a lot about it, and it's what God told me to do. And so I feel like there's great things in store, and I'm excited and I'm hopeful to see what comes to reality.
How much of an extra emphasis would you say, or even a unique bonding it is between you two? Like I said, both of you guys have that extra level of pride in terms of, hey, this is not just a team where I want to go win and be successful at, but this is something where I want to get my hometown team back to being in the tournament, back to great success. How much extra motivation or pride would you say that aspect brings to it for both of you guys?
Yeah, it brings a motivation. I mean, you can't even really say you can't even really put a limit on it, just
Sure.
because it would mean everything, right? Bringing Minnesota back to the tournament and just continuing to build these blocks. But we understand that it's not going to happen overnight, and
Mhm.
um, me and Coach and some of the other guys that have been here for the 3-4 years that he's been here. It's just we understand. It's not an overnight thing. It's day by day. There's going to be growing pains. And if you understand that and you stay the course, then great things are going to come.
So walk us through that a little bit then, because obviously there were growing pains. Like I said, it wasn't just a top level program when the day he got there. There was a lot of rebuilding that had to be done. In year one, you guys go out there, not obviously the most successful overall, a 9-win season. Walk us through that year as a whole, because obviously you come from a winning background. You've won a lot of games in your career. I have to imagine just that component of only winning 9 games that season wasn't the easiest per se for yourself. How did you get through that first year?
Yeah, it's tough. Losing sucks. No one likes to lose.
Hmm.
And so, really, just got through it by just showing up every single day and just treating it like another day to get better, another opportunity. I saw something the other day. I don't know who said it, but I really like the quote. It was just like, you're gonna have success, you're gonna have failure, but with both of them, you have an opportunity, and that's really how I looked at it. You have an opportunity regardless. If you lose, you can't dwell on it. You got to get up the next day and you got to show up and you got to put your best foot forward. If you win, you got to get over yourself. You can enjoy it, but you got to get over yourself. Then the next day, put your best foot forward. Nothing really changes. And so, through success and failure, nothing really changes. The mindset should remain the same.
And you guys clearly did that, because then you guys go out to last season and you guys increased by 10 wins to a total of 19 wins that last season. Walk us through that excitement, though, to be able to go from more than doubling you guys' win total from the previous season. How exciting was that? And just what was it last year like?
Yeah, it was exciting. Some of those losses still haunt me to this day, just
Mhm.
because I know we were a couple games here and there away from making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
But it was a big time improvement, and I'm excited for the program and university and the direction it's headed in. And so we're hoping and we're optimistic that we're going to build on that this year.
All right, well, let's get into this season, because there were a lot of changes here. And I want to start off with yourself personally now, because you already talked about at one point that this was an off season where you're coming off an all conference team selection. You had an incredible season. And we know in this era, transfer portal era, NIL era, lots of teams would have wanted you and you could have went anywhere pretty much in the country again. You clearly didn't decide to do that. You decided to stay home, return to Minnesota. Why was that your decision that you made?
Yeah, first and foremost, truthfully, I prayed a lot about it. I
Hmm.
fasted on it, and it's truly the direction that God told me to go in. He told me to stay. He told me to be present, be where my feet are, and so I listened to him and I was obedient. And secondly, I believe, like I said earlier, I'm a big time believer in this university, this basketball team, the coaches, my teammates, and so in that regard, it was an easy decision to make, and so I'm thankful that I did it, and I can't wait to see. I can't wait to, you know, see where it takes us.
That was kind of the next question I was going to ask you then. So, how much consideration did you ever give to go into other options? Because, like I said, I'm sure your agents or whatever it was were conveying some form of amounts of NIL money, opportunities, so on and so forth. Did you ever give any serious consideration? And if so, how long did that last of even considering options of outside of Minnesota?
Yeah, when you hear numbers that a player like myself could have received in the portal being thrown at you that are legit,
Yeah.
you're gonna naturally, as a human being, think about it, right? You're gonna think about it a little bit, but that's why um, I just prided myself on having that relationship with God, and
Mm,
you know sometimes going somewhere and making more money is not always the best decision to make, and sometimes it is. And
yep.
so that's why um, I advise everyone to just have their own personal relationship, and just pray about it and think about it and talk to a lot of people, their loved ones, close to them. Keep a good circle around you, and that's what it came down to. And then as Minnesota too, there's something to be said about Coach Johnson and Coach Thor. When I was leaving North Carolina, they really had my back. Um, and they helped me out through a tough time, and they brought me in with open arms. And there's something to be said about showing love to the people that have showed love to you before. And so it
Mhm.
really came down to that. And um, like I said, when all those things added up, it was an easy decision.
That's an awesome thing because we've already talked about your faith and whatnot. And we know how much in the Bible Jesus talks about money and how much of it can obviously deter people from what he's called they're calling to. And that could be an easy thing when you talk about guys, especially when they're young and if they don't have a relationship with God, you're going to want to pursue the money. And that's not always going to be the best option. There's countless stories of guys that have gone places for the money and it's ultimately ruined their careers to certain extents. How much of just having the biblical wisdom, understanding the teaching that God has had and taught you has been able to allow you to say, hey, like you said, money can obviously be an option. It's not necessarily that can be bad, but you need to be able to evaluate the whole scenario. You need to make sure what is actually the right choice that God's leading to, even if it's not a worldly success thing, if you want to call it that. How big has that just been being able to utilize your biblical wisdom now and apply into your life?
Yeah, I think biblical wisdom is huge. I think that if you pray about it and seriously pray about it and ask for guidance, um, that if you're obedient, sometimes what he's telling you to do. I'm not saying this isn't my case, but I'm
Mm,
saying sometimes what he's telling you to do may not be what you want to do. But and then it comes down to if you're obedient or not. And if you're obedient, I would challenge every single person, even if it's not what they want to do, but it's what God's telling them to do, to lean in and be obedient to God, because what He has planned for you is going to be far, far greater than anything that you could try
mhm.
to self orchestrate. And so that's what I would really, relay to any other person that is, trying to make a decision.
Absolutely. And obviously, I'm going to transition now to the other guys and how this roster came together. And obviously, just to clarify with everyone listening, this isn't obviously a shot. Any of them just happens to be we're transitioning. But there were a lot of guys that did take that opportunity and go elsewhere this year on this team. And so, walk us through that. Obviously, like I said, obviously, we don't know the exact stories behind each and every single one of them. But what we do know is that a lot of the core pieces decided to move on. For Cam's case, he obviously had the opportunity to go get drafted in the NBA. No one can fault him for that opportunity there. But then you obviously look at a lot of guys that just transferred around new schools this year from Elijah, Josh, Farrell, etc. How would you say those impacts of those guys losing? Obviously, guys that were high rotational guys, starting guys alongside yourself, whatever the case may be. How much would you say that's kind of was an impact on their team overall when you guys were in the early portions before you guys had the new replacements? How did that kind of impact your thoughts on the team, and just how did you get through that time span?
Yeah, it was a wild time for sure. But like you mentioned, those guys, Elijah Hawkins, Pharrell Payne, Joshua Olajoseph, Braden Carrington,
Mhm.
all those guys made decisions that were best for them, and you can't knock them. Those are still
No.
my brothers at the end of the day. We went through ups and downs together, and those types of situations bond you for a lifetime. And so they made a decision that was best suited for them. Um, they went about it in a good way, and we kept a relationship. And so I can't knock them, and I'll be cheering and looking forward to their future successes. But like you said, it was definitely tough because you want to have your roster set going into the next season.
Yeah.
You want to know who you're going to be playing with, but luckily the coaches, Coach Johnson did a great job of finding players in the portal that fit our team great, and been looking great in practice so far.
And like you said, this was a team that if everybody returned, or obviously came down and everything, this was a team that right out the gate, that were way too early rankings and whatnot, I guess probably would have easily been a top 25 roster right out the gate. And so you see that obviously and guys move on, there's going to be new guys that come in then. How did that overall just shift your mindset? Or did it even shift your mindset at all saying, okay, now we're going to have to do the chemistry component? Because when you go into a season, obviously you already have chemistry from last year. That's a little bit easier adjustment time span. How did it just shift your mindset and approach of vision for the team when you were in, May or June, July time?
Yeah, it didn't really. I mean, it shifted my mindset a little bit. It just gave me a higher sense of urgency to
Hmm.
get in the gym and get connected with these guys. I'll say that's really the main thing. You know, we were going to be in the gym working regardless, but
Sure.
now it's just we needed to have a higher urgency earlier on to learn each other's games, to where we like the ball, what spots we like to be on the floor, and just things like that.
All right, well, let's break down this team because obviously you guys still have a lot of talent on this team. But for the starters, let's just break it down with the guys that's returning. We know yourself already, but then you guys got Parker returning. You guys got Mike, two guys that were key pieces for last year's team returning now. Walk us through those two guys specifically, and just how close you guys are and what those two guys are looking like as you guys have three massive returners for this year's team.
Yeah, those guys, I got a great relationship with Parker and Mike. You know, they've done a great job in the summer as well, developing their games. Fox, he's coming up. This is his second year off that ACL, and so I'm excited to see what he can do. You know, body's definitely feeling better,
Hmm.
and then Mike is going to make huge improvements as well. You're going to see him with the ball in his hands a lot more. You know, last year we had Elijah Hawkins with the ball in his hands a lot, but now that he's gone, Mike's going to play the point a good amount for us, and so it'll be good to see. I guess I've already seen it, but I'm excited for other people to see what he can do with the ball in his
Sure.
hands. We know he can shoot the rock. We know he can play make, but you're just going to see it more and more this year from him.
All right, so then we got a lot of guys coming into this team that came from whether it be freshmen or incoming recruits from transfer portal. And I'm just going to list a couple of guys. Obviously, Femi is a guy that I've liked for a long time. I think he's super underrated. You got Tyler, you have Luke Kai, Brandon Rigsby coming over from Oregon, and many other guys. Talk about these guys. How's the chemistry coming along with all the new guys coming in, and how do they all look specifically?
Chemistry's been great. All those guys have made big time strides in their game, even since the first time that I saw them on campus. Like you mentioned, I like Femi a lot. Super vocal, great leader, great on defense, good with the ball. Brennan can really shoot that thing. Can get up on the rim. Um, you mentioned TC and Kai, both of them elite pace, great passers, can really score the ball. And then who's the other guy you mentioned?
I mentioned those four specifically, but then I said obviously there's a few other guys. I know you guys got quite a few new guys coming in, but
Yeah, like that. Just to get into like the specifics of them, just surface level. They've done a tremendous job, and I'm excited. And it's been a pleasure playing with them in practice so far. And can't wait to get up on that floor and compete with them versus other teams.
has there been anybody that shocked you yet? Guys that maybe were just returning that maybe are going to have a lot larger jump this season that you'd say, hey, over the past few months, they've improved drastically. They look like they can be a guy that's going to take a massive jump this season.
Yeah, I would say Caden Betts, just
Mm.
because he's been in our program. He got here as like a 17-year-old little kid, really,
Yeah.
and just the growth that I've seen him made. He stayed consistent in the gym every single day, whether what through success, through failure, and so he's made tremendous strides in his game. And so I'm just excited to see him take what he's been doing in workouts and practice and bring it to the games, because I feel like if he's able to do that, then he can be a big time helping piece for us.
All right. So you look at yourself, which we're going to talk about after this question, but and everyone else you just discussed and the whole team as a whole. What are your expectations for this year's team? How good can this Minnesota team be this year?
My expectations are really high. I want to make it to
Mm.
the NCAA tournament. I want to make a run into the NCAA tournament, and I want to win a lot of conference games with this team. And so my expectations are very high.
When you talk about the option and opportunity, I should say, to be able to get Minnesota back into the tournament, your hometown team, your final year of college basketball, what would that mean to you?
I mean everything. I mean, obviously you have individual goals. Everyone's got those, but
Yep.
that's a big time goal for me, and it would mean the world to me. And so I'm just excited to get on the court and just start building brick by brick with this team and see where it can take us, because we got a lot of talent. We're a very connected group, and we got high contagious energy. So I'm just excited.
All right, well, let's get into yourself now because, as I alluded to a few times throughout this show, you've already been a guy that's accomplished a ton throughout your college career. You're just coming off a season where you already were an all-conference selection in the Big Ten. And when you talk about the guys that's returning college basketball this year, you're right there on the top of my list. You're one of those guys that have a great chance of being an All-American, whether it be first, second, third team, whatever the case may be. And you just talk about yourself, knowing that I'm sure as a player you have confidence that you could be one of, if not the best player on the court every time you step on that court this year. What is your mindset heading into this season?
mindset really just kill everyone that steps on the court. Every time I step on the court, I just want to kill. And like you said, it's a mindset that you have every single time you step on the court. You got to be, I'm the best player on this floor. No one can stop me. No one can mess with me. And that's the type of mindset you have to have if you want to be successful. It's going to be day in and day out, but I have the full confidence in myself that I have the ability to do all that.
So when you look at personal goals for yourself this season, what would those be?
Personal goals, I want to be an All American. I want to I want to be in a running to win Big Ten Player of the Year. I've got a lot of other personal goals, but those are just kind of some of the surface level goals that I have, and I'm looking forward to put my best foot forward to accomplish them.
So you're already coming off a season in which you pretty much led the team in almost every statistical category last year. What else do you see yourself improving on now? What were some emphasis that you put on your game this offseason to really improve on to be able to make an even larger jump now as you head into this season?
Yeah, shooting the ball more consistently and playmaking are the two things that I put a big emphasis on.
Absolutely, man. Well, a few more things before I let you go. One of that is you look at this upcoming season, and now you've already been in the Big Ten now for a total of 2 seasons to go into your third year. Is there a game that you currently have circled on your calendar that you're the most excited to play this year?
I'll probably say Washington at home, just because I'm going to be playing
Hmm.
against my former high school teammate Tyree.
Yep.
We both had wild college careers. He started at UND, went to JMU, ended up back at UND, and now he's at Washington. And we've discussed my journey, and so I think it's going to be a cool experience. Just to we finally are going to be playing each other in college, and Washington's going to be coming to the barn. So I look forward to that game, and maybe put him on a poster.
Absolutely, man. Well, the thing I was like wrapping up with everybody is talking about your guys' legacy. And I know we've talked a lot about yourself over this interview now, but when this day does come in about a year from now, when you're all done in Minnesota, you're moving on to whatever God's got in store for you next, what is it that you want the nation, but specifically Minnesota fans, to remember Dawson Garcia by?
Yeah, I want the nation and more specifically Minnesota fans to remember Dawson Garcia by a guy that showed up every single day, showed up to work with an attitude and full effort, gave everything he had to this university, and
Hmm.
someone that prided himself on being a winner with his daily habits, with how he handled people, the media on the court. Just someone that was highly competitive and brought every single person up with him that he entered the room with.
Absolutely, man. Well, Dawson, I appreciate you taking time to come on today. I'm so excited to see what God's got in store for you, not only this season, man, but going forward. And once again, I just appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you as well, my man.
Of course, man. You're always welcome on. God bless.
All right, you as well. Have a great one, man.
Sounds good, man. See you later.